welcome to the first lesson in Python. Um, Go ahead, open Visual Studio Code, and the first thing I'll have you do is hit File, New File, and then go to File, Save As, and create a folder called Projects somewhere. And inside of that folder, go ahead and create a file called lesson_1.py. The .py represents the Python file type. As soon as you do that, Visual Studio Code may prompt you to install a plugin for Visual Studio Code called PyLinter. Just go ahead and install PyLinter and then go ahead, close and relaunch Visual Studio Code. And then once you've done that, go ahead, join us back on the video. All right, so I have with me here again Kevin Williams, and we're gonna go over a little bit of a rundown on the Python programming language. So there's a lot of things you can build in Python. Some of those things are like financial applications, banking applications, infrastructure applications. So if you're managing servers, networks, and workstations, point of sale applications, anything that can talk with an API. Uh, Go ahead and jump in here, Kevin. Network programming like BitTorrent. Um, I know Django, right?
Oh yeah, Django. I'm pretty big with Django.
Yeah. And then Django's like a web server, so if you want to host a website, you can do it with Django. You can also build mobile apps. You can build Android and iOS through a program called Kivy, Kivy, and what it does is it converts your Python code automatically to either Objective C or C Sharp, which is uh, which is pretty good. So with computer science, we're gonna go over Python as a programming language. In a programming language, essentially, it gives us a way to communicate ideas to a computer. And these ideas are really commands that we use to communicate with the computer. So we're going to convey our command to the computer by writing them into a text file using this programming language, Python. Okay, and then these files, we call them programs that will tell the computer to read a text file, translate the text file into a set of operations that the computer understands, and then perform those commands and those actions. So that essentially is how computer science starts. We start with sending commands to the computer. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to be able to interact with the computer. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to print a message that says hello world and just copy what I'm doing exactly. And again, if you have some programming experience, this is probably going to be pretty boring. You probably already understand what's going on here. So this is a message that the file will print back to us. So the program that we create will communicate to us a message, in this case, hello world. So the first thing we're going to talk about is comments, how to create a comment. A comment, in Python, you just use the hashtag symbol, and then you type, this is a comment. And what comments are used for is for logically stepping through our program. So for each major regions in your code, if you feel like you need to explain what the code's doing, so that way somebody can quickly look over your work, you can put a comment. You can also comment out actual code to use at a later time. So I can comment out the print hello world like we just did. So in this comment, I'm going to comment out variables because the first thing we're going to talk about are variables. And Kevin, how would you describe variables to a beginner?
Oh, variables are interchangeable um, data, so you can store anything within a variable. Say variable my car, and you can use that to say my car equals Pontiac or Cadillac, et cetera, et cetera. So it's things that you can easily change within your code and
Right.
assign to something else.
Yep. And what's interesting is that so in Python, when we declare a variable, we don't have to put a symbol before the variable. We literally just write the variable. The variable cannot begin with a symbol. It cannot have open spaces in it. So, for example, I can't put your space car is equal to. In Python we use what's called snake casing, which you put everything in lowercase letters and then you separate words by the underscore symbol. So we're gonna create this variable called your car, and I'm gonna just put in I don't know, Ford Focus.
Focus.
Ford Focus. And the equal sign is not a mathematical operator. So it's not like, so in math we have 1 plus 2 is equal to 3, right? The equal sign in mathematics represents an equation, and that each side of the equation must be balanced for the statement to be true. While in computer programming, the equal sign is an assignment operator. What it does is it assigns the Pontiac to the variable my car. So whenever I call my car again, it will print out Pontiac. And we can look at that by printing the variable my car. And then in Visual Studio Code, you hit F5. And when you hit F5, it'll run the program. And you see down here, it says hello world, and then it prints out Pontiac. And you can actually, we'll get into concatenating more advanced messages, but for now, just go ahead, follow what I'm doing. My car is, and then put a colon, a quote, and then put a plus symbol, my car. And then when we run the program again, we'll get my car is Pontiac. Now, if I change this variable to your car, obviously it's going to print out Ford Focus. And it does print out Ford Focus. Now, what's cool is if you're a Windows user or even a Mac user, um, if you're a Mac user, you can install something called PowerShell. If you're a Windows user, you already have PowerShell. Um, and with PowerShell, you can actually change your directory to go to where you have the program stored. So for me, I have it stored under D, projects. And then if you look at the file, I have a file called lesson_1.py. I'm going to save my work in Visual Studio Code using the hotkey Control S. And then from any terminal, you can type the word Python space, the name of the file, lesson_1.py. And when you run it, it'll run the code inside of it. So you can run the code from the command prompt, from a git bash terminal, from the Mac terminal on Apple, from PowerShell on Windows, or from the terminal inside of Visual Studio Code. So there's a lot of leeway. In fact, I believe there is a Python terminal when you install Python, which there is. And what you can do is you can copy your code and you can dump it into the Python terminal. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's copy this and paste it into the Python terminal and run it. And you can run it from the Python terminal. So there's a lot of ways you can run these programs. For now, we're just going to use Visual Studio Code because it's simple. But if you're sort of an advanced programmer, you can go ahead and use other terminals to run your program.
Can I add something real fast?
Good.
So along with Python, I just wanted to speak on like a terminal. There is something called Jupyter Notebook, which is an open source web application that you share documents, your code with other people. And what's the other?
Anaconda?
Yeah, Anaconda. There you go, Anaconda. That's the Python IDE developments. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in if they didn't already know about that.
Yep. We can talk about this really quick. So Jupyter is a great way. You can create quick notebooks that run in the browser. And instead of having to run the code on your computer, you run it on a temporary web server hosted by Jupyter. Or Jupyter gives you the ability to host a web server. So that way you don't mess with anything on your computer. And then there is another program called Anaconda, which here is, I'll go ahead and put the links in the description of the video. These are just things you can check out. You can see that it will download Python for you. And if you're going to be doing data science, Anaconda in Jupyter Notebooks are really good for data science. So I'll add those links in the description for the video. And if you get some free time, go ahead. You can check them out. You can install them and play around with them. They're another great tool that you can use specifically for Python.
Also, if and this may be a stretch, but if you're into it, you can go ahead and get a Raspberry Pi, which is a Linux-based system. You can download Python, and you can create your own, game or what have you. It's so many different realms of creativity you can use for Python. It's unimaginable. But Raspberry Pi is another system that you can use to leverage your Python development skills.
Yeah, it's great. I have a couple Raspberry Pis at home, and I use them to filter out advertisements on my network. So before a website even gets sent to me, it hits my Raspberry Pi, and my Raspberry Pi runs some Python code, and it filters out all the ads um, on my network for me, so I don't have to, wait 30 seconds in between YouTube videos and that kind of stuff. So Raspberry Pi is a small computing device, and I'll go ahead and add this link in the description for the video as well. They're like 30 bucks. You can find some that are cheaper. They usually have a video display port, like a VGA or an HDMI, and then they come with a network interface, and they come with like two USB cables, one for keyboard, one for mouse, and they're really tiny computing modules, and they run exclusively off of things like Python. You can write your own operating system in Python on a Raspberry Pi. So again, these are more sort of resources if you're going to dive into Python specifically that you can go and check out. And we'll go ahead and add that link in the description for the video. So now getting back to variables. The other thing I wanna comment on is you can actually update variables. So here we have the variable my car in your car, and then we print out a statement that says my car is the variable your car, and when we run the program, it prints out my car is Ford Focus. Well, what we can actually do is we can target your car again, and we can update it, and we can say it's a Jaguar now.
Right.
And then when we reprint the statement, and really, like if you're gonna repeat yourself, what we should do, what we should be doing is we should say message is equal to the string, my car is space, and then we get rid of this string inside of here and we just write message, right? And then inside of here we get rid of this string and we say message. Print out message plus your car. And inside of message is stored the string my car, so the message my car, and then it will just concatenate or put together whatever the next variable is. So we should get two messages, right? So the first one is we should get your car, which is the Ford Focus, okay? And then so this is the space in between the update for the variable. We're going to update the variable to change your car to Jaguar, and then I'm going to reprint the same message. And you'll see the behavior here is that my car is Ford Focus gets printed out, and that my car is Jaguar gets printed out. So the message, the variable gets updated to a different value. So those are some of the things that we can do with variables. Okay, any other things you want to add for variables, Kevin?
No, that's good enough. That's as simple as it gets.
Yep, they're just things that are defined to be reused and they hold values. And those values can be updated and changed. And you can add those things together to create longer messages, etc.
Well, I do want to add when naming variables, like it's easier to just name them something unique. You don't want to name your variables JavaScript or script or anything related to the syntax is keywords because it'll cause an error. So if your variable has the same keyword as or print or anything related to the syntax keywords, it'll cause an error.
Yep.
Did that starting off too, and it was kind of ugly.
Yeah, try to stay away from things like A001 underscore first one is equal to Apple. Like, if another developer comes in and looks at your code and they see that right there, first of all, they're gonna make fun of you,
Right.
and they're probably gonna tweet it out on social media or GitHub or something. I would immediately text this to like all my friends and say, look at this person, look at this variable. What the hell are they doing? This is what I have to deal with every day. Don't be that person that over expresses a variable. KISS, keep it simple, stupid, works very well with Python. Python was specifically written for scientists who don't know how to program. So everything in the language is built to be understood at a human level, so that way you can code faster. The idea behind Python is we want you to get in, we want you to code, and we want you to solve problems faster. We don't want you to have to spend time figuring out magical pieces of the language. So,
Right.
all right, that'll end our discussion on variables.
Simple more.
Yep. The next topic we'll discuss in the next video will be data types, and we will see you then. Thank you.